Welcome to the Schools of Excellence podcast, where we transform everyday leadership struggles into powerful legacies that impact generations. I'm your host, Chanie Wilschanski, a 20-year veteran of school leadership who has helped hundreds of school leaders achieve what many thought was impossible through our signature programs, School Leadership HQ and Enrollment Engine. With our battle-tested frameworks and blueprints, leaders have achieved 90% parent retention, 50% less staff turnover, 15% improved profit margins, and increased enrollment by 25%. My mission is simple: to revolutionize school leadership by elevating the skills, the habits, and mindset of passionate leaders ready to create lasting change. Join me as we build your legacy of excellence, one transformative conversation at a time. Welcome back to the Schools of Excellence podcast. Today we are on money leak number 2, which is schedule efficiency, how to build a strategic coverage system. So your staff is your biggest line item on your payroll, okay, in your budget. So that means that coverage and efficiency, right, the schedule efficiency can also be the biggest leak in your school. So when I say the words schedule efficiency, most leaders are already saying, we always need extra coverage. We always need to make sure that we have enough people. And here's the thing. I am not against having extra people. Like, I actually believe that overstaffing during flu season or stuff like that is an insurance policy. And I have a whole podcast episode on that. What you need to understand is you don't need extra coverage for the sake of extra coverage. You need a strategic coverage system. Okay, you don't need bodies in the building for the sake of having bodies in the building. Think about how many times you walk into a clothing store and you see 5 employees walking around, but when you go over to someone, no one can help you. Or there are 15 registers and there are 9 people at the registers, but all of them are doing something else very conveniently, and no one can help you check out your t-shirt that you came to buy. Or you're standing in an airport and there are 19 kiosks and there are only 4 of them in usage. I'm like, why do you have 19 kiosks? Only 4 of them are working, right? Or I go stand in line for someone to help me check in. And again, there are 6 counters. There are 6 people standing in the counters. There's also like 9 supervisors working behind them, but like no one can actually check me in. They're all busy doing something else. And I'm like, aren't you here to check people in? Okay. So this concept of like having people for the sake of having people, no. Coverage for the sake of coverage is not strategic. Okay. You can have 20 people in a building, but if no one is actually doing what they're supposed to be doing, you are leaking profit. So we need to fix that. So let's go into part 1 of the schedule efficiency leak. Now, again, all of this is inside of the money leaks diagnostic. You go to schoolsofexcellence.com/money leaks. The link is in the show notes. You can check that out. You can check that out in our email. And I'm going to walk you through here all of these sections. Strategic coverage versus just coverage. Now, I never ask a director, do you have enough staff? I say, do you have a system for ratio management, for break coverage, for schedule predictability? Because that's what matters. Not if you have, quote unquote, enough staff. Okay? Because the way that you fix problems is not with Band-Aids. You create them with systems. Systems create structure. And then rhythms create safety and predictability. That is how a system and a rhythm can outlive any staff member, any admin, or any short-term patch or quick fix that you put in. So when I started to talk to people about schedule efficiencies, people would say things like, we always need extra coverage. We always need to have extra staff. But again, we need to be strategic about how we actually do it because we need better systems for schedule efficiency. Now, when we're designing the system, okay, and I spoke about this in the first episode, we cannot design the system for the person and how easy it is for the person to implement. You need to design your schedule efficiency system based on what the school needs, because your people might come and go, but your school's still going to be standing. So I had a conversation with an owner that she had all these systems, but she couldn't implement any of those SOPs because every time someone in her admin team left, they took all the information with them because there wasn't a real process. So she constantly had to resurrect from the dead all the systems. And so every single time someone left, she was starting over again, even though she's been in business for almost 2 decades. because she never had a true proper break coverage system, which to me is so basic and foundational, but it totally makes sense that the systems weren't designed in the school. They were designed for the people running the system. They weren't designed for the actual school. So when you're creating coverage, you need to understand that the coverage has to be for the ratios, for the peak enrollment season, for those times, so it actually makes sense and you're not in survival. Let's look at a real example from a Head Start program where we were talking about scheduling overlap and how this is like such a budget bleed that it's like kind of a little bit scary when you think about it. So I was working with a Head Start program, and this really happens in any school. I just happened to be working with a Head Start program. They were open for 13 hours. They had 6 to 7, and then multiple shifts, obviously, in that 13-hour day. They were hemorrhaging money. And so I audited their schedule. Now, just so you know, by the way, they have like the best accountants and bookkeepers and tax strategists that they were working with. No one was able to figure this out. They all just kept saying, you have to cut this, you have to cut that, stop doing this, stop doing that. This is why like I have a love-hate relationship with accountants and bookkeepers and financial people, because they have really good intentions, but they've never actually run schools and been in schools and like had their feet met to the fire with these real life decisions. And this is why I created and founded Schools of Excellence, because I was tired of listening to people speak in ivory towers about how to run financials in a childcare when they've never actually run a center. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you've never run a center. Like, you don't understand. You don't know what questions to be asking for. And a childcare is just different. Like, it's really different. So anyways, I audit the schedule of their classrooms, and I notice that every shift that they had 3 shifts during the 13-hour day. Every shift had about a 30 to 35 minute overlap. So I want you to think about that for a second. You have a 30 to 35 minute overlap between shifts. So the teacher was coming in and the other teacher was going, but there was about this 30-minute overlap they were both billing for. Teachers got paid by the hour. So on average, the teachers were getting paid $16 an hour. So I sat down with the owner and I said, okay, how long should a transition take? What are the things that need to happen during the transition? So she made a list of things, right? There's an attendance update, there's a key incident, any incident report, any parent communication, any supply need, couple things like that. I'm like, okay, if you're being really, really conservative, how much time should the transition take? How much time would the switchover take? About 10 to 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, so 10 to 15 minutes is not 35 minutes. If you close that 20-minute gap across 20 teachers, how much money is that? Now, you could take out a calculator and run it. When you close a 20-minute daily overlap gap across 20 teachers, that is $27,733 per year. That's an entire teacher salary just by optimizing transition shifts when they're transitioning from one shift to the other shift. This is mind-blowing because so many people, so many owners are listening to this and they're like, oh my God, I would love to have almost $30,000. And you think you have to go earn $30,000 through more hustle, through more grit, through more enrollment or whatever it is. Now, again, enrollment's important. I'm not talking about enrollment right now. I'm talking about schedule efficiencies. And there are so many inefficiencies in your staffing schedule, especially if you're open for many hours. There's going to be an overlap in shifts. Go audit that. This was a 20-minute daily overlap gap, which resulted in almost $30,000 in savings. That's a lot of money that they started to use and invest in other areas that helped their staff, that helped the owner, that helped their reputation, that helped so many things that they wanted to use it for, right? I'm not talking about $5, $10. That's not what I'm talking about when I talk about schedule efficiencies or any of these money leaks. This is not about closing a leak of like $5 a day or whatever it is. Like, this is thousands and thousands of dollars that is quietly leaking in the background, that is killing your profitability. And you're here squeezing and contorting yourself and trying to figure out ways how to make more money, where to find money. It's in the money leaks. It's in the money leaks. This is a golden ticket for you. And it's free. Go to schoolsofexcellence.com/moneyleaks. I'm not hiding this. It is not only accessible to certain people. Like, go download the Money Leak. Go check out and see which area you're leaking in. Listen to this episode. I will give you some practical strategies. Now, if you want support in execution and customization, all of that, absolutely would love for you to fill out an application. Come join us in School Leadership HQ. But get started with this. So that is the second one. Let's go to the third part of schedule efficiency. Schedule predictability is not a luxury. It's a standard. It's a leadership standard. When I was a teacher, I worked as a teacher for 9 years. My schedule for 9 years was 8:30 to 1:30 every single day for 9 years. The only time that I didn't work that schedule was when I had a baby and I wasn't there, or when I was sick.
Hey, school owners, I see you. You've built the team, you've trusted others with the work, and somehow it still feels like everything lands on your shoulders. And that weight is exhausting. What if you could stop carrying it all alone? What if you can finally see exactly where your leadership is getting stuck and what to do next? That's where the Strategic Leadership Scorecard was made for. In just 2 minutes, it will give you a clear diagnosis in one of the core areas of leading a school: enrollment, financial health, staff culture, or parent engagement. You'll get practical steps and trusted resources to help you lighten your load and unlock real ownership in your team to be able to lead with confidence. You deserve this level of steadiness. So take the scorecard now so you can lead with clarity and know that your school runs on shared ownership, real standards, and rhythms of accountability.
I didn't try to create a new schedule every single week. And I see school leaders allowing staff to constantly change their shifts. I want to start later next week. I want to start earlier. I want to do this. I want to do this. That's not how schedule efficiency works. You can make a standard in your school. Candidates must commit to specific schedules. If they're not looking for weekly flexibility, they're not a fit for this role. You can create specific schedules. You can. There are people that want a predictable schedule. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes I didn't come late or leave early for, extenuating circumstances, but I don't want a different schedule every single week. I like predictability. I wanted to know when I was going to work. I didn't want a different schedule every single week. That would feel so chaotic for me. Okay. Now, let's talk about something else when I talk about schedule predictability. Okay, so many of you have a policy where you need to give, let's say, 2 weeks notice or 1 week notice before you're not going to be there. It's not like, hey, I'm on the plane to Mexico, see you in 2 weeks. So people need to give advance notice. Now, the thing is that people give advance notice, but then they change their requests, or too many people put in requests at the same time. And you're like, well, I can't accommodate everyone. So now it starts to get messy because you don't have proper coverage that you need because everyone's wanting time off at a specific time. So you need a system, right? What is the policy to request time off? This is part of your schedule efficiency. And if you already have one, that's great. That means you're already on your path towards really good, efficient schedules. Now, so many times people will say things like, is it efficient and if I go in and do a break here? Or is it efficient if someone from my admin team does X, Y, and Z? Here's the thing. Is it efficient to sit and read your child a book? Or is it more efficient to do a load of laundry? Just ask yourself that question for a second. Is it more efficient to read your child a book before they go to sleep or in the morning? Or is it more efficient to run a load of laundry? Well, it depends what your priority is. It depends what's important to you. So it's not about, is it efficient or is it not efficient? Giving a teacher a break so she can breathe, so she doesn't burn out. And maybe that admin isn't doing paperwork during that half hour or whatever it is. Stop obsessing over every single individual thing. Teachers need breaks. I'm not talking about using the toilet. Teachers need lunch breaks, actual breaks, because no human being on the planet can be with kids for hours and hours and hours on end without a break. They will break down. So part of you, when you come in, you're giving a break and maybe you're not efficient, but that time frame is efficient because the teacher needs that break. And when you allow every single kind of request, it becomes chaos because then everyone's asking for time off and you don't know who's available when. And suddenly you can't cover ratios and then you have an entire system breakdown. So when I talk about schedule efficiency in this section, you need a protocol. What happens when too many requests come in at the same time? Who approves them? What's the rhythm for reviewing them? You need to create schedule predictability so you don't need to be emotionally reactive when people send in requests. That's another part of schedule efficiency. Next section, break coverage, right? Let's go into break coverage, which I started talking about a second ago, is a culture issue. Break coverage and how breaks happen sometimes start later or get pushed out or whatever it is. Now, when I was a director and later an executive director, I was really, 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 really rigid about the breaks. And I would never joke about the break time. I was like, this is your break time. This is when it is, because the school is an ecosystem. And if you start your break 5 minutes later, you might be like, whatever, it's 5 minutes, sweetheart. 5 minutes is an entire eternity in the world of breaks. In the world of breaks, every single minute is so important. So really sitting down with your team and communicating to them why it's in the best interest of them to make sure that the break schedule is running on time. Because this happens with my kids sometimes. So on Fridays, they get screen time, they get iPad time. And sometimes my kids would use the iPad and then secretly they would take an extra 5 minutes because the other kid wasn't watching the clock or whatever. And I was like, it is never in your best interest to try to steal 5 minutes because I see everything. And you know the rules that if you take an extra 5 minutes, that means next week you get 5 less minutes. So you took 5 minutes now, but next week you're going to get 10 minutes less. And you only get 20 minutes of screen time total. So now you're only going to get 10 minutes. That wasn't really worth it. So you need to really communicate to your team why it's important for them to run the break schedule. I'm going to tell you another reason, because this would happen so often. And when I would do teacher workshops years ago, and I would always give this example, and every teacher would like sigh in such, oh my God, I feel seen. So let's say you're in a classroom and your co-teacher left for her break at 12. Now, she's supposed to come back at 12:30, but she comes back at 12:35. Now, she sees it as whatever, it's a 5-minute infraction, like it's 5 minutes that I came late. But for a teacher who's waiting in the classroom for her break, 5 minutes is 5 hours. Every minute feels like an hour when you're waiting for your break. And what happens is every minute that she's waiting, it erodes my trust in your ability to be reliable. And when a teacher doesn't trust their co-teacher and they don't feel like they can rely on them, now you have a massive cultural breakdown in the room. Now it's not about breaks anymore. Now it's about trust and culture, which leads to another, whole heap of other issues. So we need to ask ourselves, what is our break coverage system? Right? What is the protocol? This is why we take breaks at this time. This is why we take a break, period. There are so many teachers like, I don't need a break. I don't need to take a break. That is not an option when you work an 8-hour day or 6-hour day or whatever it is. You don't get to say, I'm not taking a break. I'm just working through it because I want to get paid for that time. No, you have to take a break. You get paid during your break time. You have to take a break because what's going to happen is you're not going to take a break for 5 weeks and then you're going to collapse. And then you're going to start getting snippy with the kids and you're going to start getting frustrated. And little things that used to not annoy you are going to annoy the crap out of you. And then you're going to start becoming toxic and gossipy to all the other teachers. And then you're eventually going to quit and leave. And then I'm going to think, oh, she wasn't really a good fit. When really, she just needed a freaking break every single day from the kids. Okay, I've seen this happen and play out so many times. Everyone needs a break. Okay, everyone needs a break. Not an option. Not an option. You need a break coverage system. What times are the breaks? Who covers the breaks? What happens if something gets pushed, right? Stop asking if it's efficient to have admin cover breaks. Stop asking about all these things and start looking about it's human energy is being used inside of those classrooms. How are we making sure that everyone is being protected? Okay. Last thing, emergency coverage and call outs. All right. It's not even tough love. It's just brutally honest, okay? If you're a director and if you're an owner and if you're regularly stepping into classrooms, you are stealing from the school. That's it. You're stealing, okay? It's not leadership. It's every single time a director has to go in and cover a class, she is stealing from the school's profitability. Absolutely stealing. Because if you needed to be in the classroom, you would be a teacher. but you are not needed in the classroom. We need teachers in the classroom. You are a director. You are a director. Your role is a director, which means when you're not doing the director role, the school is hurting financially because there's work that needs to be done that moves the school forward that you're not doing because you're in a classroom. So you're hurting the business's profitability, which is why you need emergency coverage protocols, because you are not the teacher. Now, it's very easy for us to just go in and get into the classroom. But let me tell you something. If you thought and paused for 1 second before you walked into this classroom, I am stealing from the school. The business is leaking money now. I promise you would find someone to cover that classroom. You would be really working hard on all the staff culture rhythms to make sure that you don't get short-staffed so that you're not draining company profit. Because when you're not doing director level and leadership work, when you're not mentoring, marketing, working on connecting with staff, coaching staff, building systems, when you're in a room, you need a substitute pool. You need an emergency coverage protocol. You need a way to triage callouts without constantly throwing yourself into the classroom. When you don't have a system, you have a panic button. Okay. And when you have a panic button, you steal from the school real money, like actual cash. It's much easier to say, right? Like, I'll just do it myself. It's faster if I do it myself. But if you really consider that every single time you jump into a classroom to coverage, you're saying yes to leaking profit, you're going to think twice. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. So here are your next step action items. I want you to, invite you to audit your shift overlaps. Okay. Are you paying double for the same 30 minutes? Fix it. Clarify your break coverage protocol. Okay, we have this system inside of School Leadership HQ. If you are interested in that and you want to work with us on your money leaks, absolutely fill out an application in the show notes. Number 3, review your emergency coverage plan. Who do you call? What's the protocol? Are you the protocol? It's time to change that. Okay. And then download the money leaks diagnostic, right? Go to schoolsofexcellence.com/moneyleaks, score your school in the category so that you can actually see, okay, we are scoring really low in schedule efficiency. We need to work on this. This is something that we need to work on. Schoolsofexcellence.com/moneyleaks. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. And next week, we're going to dive into the third money leak, which is food control. All right. Thanks so much for joining. If you are loving the Schools of Excellence podcast and have gotten any value out of it for your school, I would love if you can do 2 things for me. 1, subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. And 2, can you please leave us a review? Reviews help other school leaders know that this is the place to learn how to build a school of excellence. And I would be so grateful if you can do that for us. Your help and support makes this show to be able to be listened by the thousands of other school leaders all around the world. Thanks so much for listening, for giving us your time and attention each and every week. And I appreciate that you have joined us.